from the ground up, building a Fed, 1997. This episode, I'll be joined by Etep Wokuian from the Place to Be Reviews. But the fact is, before he gets here, I have one very important thing to talk to you about. That is why this channel exists. And that is because I, Oz, from Mr. Super Oz, I wrote a 68-page graphic novel called Everlasting Survivors. This is the Jeff Hicks A cover. This is the Nick Crook B cover. There are additionally C, D, and E covers. Jeff's new C cover, here it is in poster form, beautiful, and February Ferdian's E cover in poster form right there. But if you follow the link in the description, you can get yourself a hat, a shirt, any of the stuff I've already talked about, and like I said, it's the only reason why the channel exists is to pass that knowledge on to you. But after I roll that open, Etep will be here. We will each build our own separate federations. Mr. Super Oz is going to run WrestleFest in 1997. Etep, he's going to get his own company. And we'll tell you who we would put on top in 97. Etep, welcome, and thank you for joining me here for the second episode of From the Ground Up, Building a Fed.
It is good to be here, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, my inspiration came from WrestleMania. Because WrestleMania is a fun thing to enjoy.
Yes.
And originally, when I brought it up to you, we were gonna have like this humongous stream of a bunch of people just talking about building feds, but I was like, hey, let's spread it out. Let's make it a monthly thing. And so now we are in the year of 1997 via your choosing, because Josiah being the guinea pig in the first one, we just worked in this year. But each episode going forward, the guest will get to choose the year that the episode takes part in. And for anybody who missed the first episode, because we're working in certain years, we get to choose a certain number of wrestlers from the active promotions in the year that we're in. And in 1997, me and Etep both get to pick two guys from ECW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WCW, and the World Wrestling Federation. I'll go first with my Elite Eight, my men that I am building this promotion around and crowning my first top guy here tonight, September the 27th of 1997. So my first pick, the first guy that I take from Paul E. Dangerously and ECW is Jerry Lynn, the New Effin' Show. I loved the push that he got under Paul E. Finally getting to the top. I enjoyed his work in WCW under the hood as Mr. JL, and I just thought that he had way more to offer when he was with Vince in the WWF later, obviously. But yeah, here, Jerry Lynn is my first pick from ECW. My first pick from WCW is a man who prospered in New Japan Pro Wrestling, getting as high as their heavyweight championship, and that being Scott Flash Norton.
Excellent pick.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, when he was with the New World Order, I thought that he really could have, or maybe should have been a more utilized singles star. I liked his tag work with Bagwell, but man, I just thought that he had more to offer in the singles. But we'll see what I can do with him here in my tournament. Moving on to WCW, I picked the future 5-time world champion Booker T, but at this time he's a multi-time tag team champion with his brother Stevie Ray. Still a great talent to have to build a company around. And my first pick from World Wrestling Federation is the most dangerous man, and I believe he won one of the first Ultimate Fighting Championship tournaments. So
Yeah.
maybe he'll do good here in this tournament. That being Ken Shamrock. My second pick from ECW is Rob Van Dam, the whole effing show. It's almost like I was a fan of that feud. But second pick from New Japan Pro Wrestling is the Great Muta. A lot of my love for him comes from his time in the National Wrestling Alliance and early WCW. But he was with New Japan at this time, so I'm picking him up to put him to work. My second and final pick from WCW is Lionheart Chris Jericho, although I think at this point he's about either is or about to be the man of 1,004 holds, the conspiracy theorist Chris Jericho character. And my final pick for the Elite Eight of this tournament, where I crown my top guy from 1997, is the loose cannon, the man from Cincinnati. He walked on to the Bengals, and he's going to walk on to my promotion, and that is Brian Pillman. So that is the Elite Eight, the 8 guys that I choose to build my federation with in 1997. Etep, who are your Elite Eight that you would like to work with to build a company around?
All right, I have some picks here that might, especially one of them that might be unpopular, and people are going to look at it and go, "Does this guy know anything about wrestling whatsoever?" And I do, and I still have some eclectic picks here, I guess, at least a couple of them. From 1997, I'll start with ECW as well, and there's only one man that I could start with from that company that really, I think, encompasses the spirit, the rebellious nature from the company's inception. And that is the man who in 1994 took the NWA title and threw it in the garbage can. And ECW was born as Extreme, the franchise, Shane Douglas.
Dude, that is a good pick. I love Shane Douglas. I love that
Oh, yeah.
promo. Oh, I love the concept of a franchise player. I legitimately
Mm-hmm.
think it is such a benefit to have that within any company, is just to
Yes.
have that guy that you know you can rely on.
Yep. And Douglas, through outside of ECW, was misused his entire career. From the dynamic dudes with Johnny Ace, the skateboard gimmick, to Dean Douglas, to what they did with him in WCW. Later on with him in Asia and that whole weird Revolution stable, and
Absolutely.
it was complete. It was sad what they did to him. Such a talent, such an acumen for the business, from a storytelling and psychology perspective. I couldn't
100.
have started with anybody else, man.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I love that pick. I can't argue with it a bit. I'm actually a little
no.
jealous. I love Shane Douglas.
All right, so number 2, we'll go over to Atlanta, Georgia, and WCW with Ted Turner's company over there. And we are going to start out with this was a no-brainer for me. A little undersized, but never overmatched. The Rabid Wolverine, Kid Pegasus, Chris Benoit himself. A member of the Horsemen. One of the best matches I've ever seen with Benoit, and this is going to sound weird, was him and Too Cold Scorpio in
No, that's not weird at all.
1993.
Not weird at all. Too Cold Scorpio is amazing, and Chris Benoit
Yes.
is crisp. I mean, was crisp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a clash of styles due
Mm-hmm.
to Scorpio doing things that people just didn't expect in the time. I mean, nowadays his stuff is common, almost commonplace.
Yeah.
But at the time, 93, 94, I mean, hell, even back in 91, he was doing stuff that just nobody did.
Yep.
I have this buddy that I work with, and he didn't know who Too Cold Scorpio was until I introduced him to the Dark Side of the Ring,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you call it, show, I guess, docu-series. There we go.
Yeah.
And he was Too Cold was talking about their time at in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
where Bischoff worked that show with Antonio Inoki,
Yeah.
and the more he would see clips of Tuchel, he was like, "Oh my goodness, this guy was ahead of his time." I'm like, "You're darn right he was." Oh no, yeah, it's great. And Benoit, man, he is responsible for a lot of guys' best matches or great
Yeah.
matches. Like
Yeah.
Jericho and Angle are two guys to this day. I'm sure there are others that while they say they understand where the Fed's coming from, also say that you're missing out on a lot of their highlights without having those matches available.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like I said, what he did was incredibly evil.
Of
But
course,
you have to separate art from the artist and just look at what he did during his career. That was enough. And like I said, that match with Scorpio, I watched that probably for the first time since it was live, maybe about, I don't know, 6 years ago. And
right.
I've watched it and I was like, oh my God, like this match is such an underappreciated gem. Like you said, the clash of styles. But Benoit, he wasn't going to stand there and do a backflip. But
Exactly.
the he could get up there and he could fly. Scorpio could work chain.
Yes.
It's a match, and like you said, all credit to the two styles for coming together and doing the dance the way it was supposed to be done. So Chris
Absolutely.
Benoit is my second pick. I'll go over to Japan now. We'll go to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and our first pick is a legend. I don't know if he's still working. I think he might be doing some shows, but Yushin Thunder Liger, the man who wrestled Brian Pillman, the very first Nitro from the Mall of America. And did they start off Nitro with a bang? And Liger was coming off a broken leg at that point. He had been out for a year. And that was, yeah,
I
he
like.
was just
He blows me away.
Yeah, Liger was just freaking amazing.
Yeah.
So that was just a and I was admittedly I didn't follow New Japan that much until I started hearing like later on about some of the end up like Norton. You talked about you had Norton. I was a huge mark for Scott Norton. It was like, why do you like Scott Norton so much? I'm like, this guy is a beast. And then you
Mhm.
start looking into him in like the magazines. It's like, wait, he's wrestling in Japan, and you find out this dude's like he's like IWGP heavyweight champion over there at one point.
Yeah.
He's like yeah, the dude is like he's famous in Japan. I'm like, why are they not booking him better? Like it
No.
didn't make any sense. His debut against Ice Train before they formed their tag team was it was or no, it's Macho Man. He worked Macho, and then they worked into that deal with Ice Train. Then it was totally misbooked. But I did love Scott Norton. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Liger's number 3. Number 4, we'll go over to Vince McMahon. And my first pick from Vince is we're live, pal, Mr. Psycho Sid himself. I don't know why, but I've always been fascinated by Sid Vicious, going back to the Skyscrapers in the 80s with him and Spivey, which led to Mean Mark Callis,
Mhm.
taking Sid's place when he was injured.
Correct.
And yeah, I like Sid. I really had a better appreciation. I didn't really watch a lot of the stuff from the early 90s in the Fed with him. I was more on WCW and just I wasn't WWF at that point got too cartoonish for me. It
Right.
really did.
But
And dub not,
in Sid's defense, his cartoon spot was like his cartoon spot was the Road Runner and the Wile E. Coyote spot, where every match he would squash a guy and he would have to be hauled off on the stretcher. So at least his cartoon gimmick was
yep.
based in believable stuff, and because he's
Yeah.
freaking humongous, like
Yep.
so.
And
I mean,
and
he's one of the better. He had one of the better.
he
Hands.
did. He had a good and I like that when they used that in ECW. I was gonna say that's when I really became a fan of Sid before he came back to WCW. Was when he would Judge Jeff Jones comes out with the stretcher. And there's
Mhm.
no music. It's just Jeff Jones walking out with a stretcher. And then the crowd started chanting. And then here comes Sid. And choke slam, take it home. It was over. And I used to love that. Like I said, I'm kind of I'm oddly I'm a Sid Mark.
Yeah, so that's a great example of so I had this conversation recently. I didn't say anybody could be Roman Reigns, but I said you give somebody who can wrestle that push, and of course they're going to get over. Same with Sid,
Yep.
or
Yep.
Goldberg, right? If it's go out there and win, people are going to get behind it.
Yep.
And that's basically what Roman's got right now. Go out, win, or actually, I think it's a shirt show up and win. And it's
Yeah.
like what he does. He shows up, he wins. Like people are going to be like, oh,
Yep.
that's impressive.
Yeah. God, the Roman Reigns thing. I've never been a big Reigns fan. I was never a big Shield fan. I've met Seth Rollins, Ambrose. I mean, I like him more than Jim Cornette does. Like I don't call him the plumber. I'm not, but I'm not a huge Moxley fan just because I think like the bleeding is a bit much. Like, dude, it's like you don't need to get color when you're walking down to the ring. Like,
Right.
like, bro,
So
save a little bit. A little bit is more. Less is more with that. I
no,
think.
I agree with that. And the more that he's been doing the often bleeding, the less of a fan I am. I mean, not that I'm not a fan. I think
Yeah,
he's fine. But it's just
yeah,
not my go-to style. Is that glass and tack and
yeah.
blah, blah,
No,
stuff.
no. Um, No, so that's a bit of kind of like a turnoff from that style for me because like when I was young and I didn't know any better, I thought that shit was cool. And the older I got, and after being in the business, especially, it's like, no, I've walked in a ring with tacks in it and had them sticking through my shoes, and I wasn't even in the match. I was just announcing, and I'm like, yeah, this sucks. No, no.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's my first four, and so we'll go back up to the top for my second ECW pick. And as we were talking off air, I said I had to research single and double check this one, but from ECW, my second pick is Dr. Death, Steve Williams. Um,
The
he's
reason Steve Austin exists.
the man was a wrestling machine. Former member of the Varsity Club back in the day with Sullivan, Rotunda, and Wyndham. Yeah, it was Wyndham. Yeah, it was Barry Windham was the fourth guy in
Yes,
there.
very Wyndham.
But
Yes.
yeah, I had to think back. I haven't looked at Ricky was in there for a minute too. Steiner, Ricky
Sure.
and Scott. But yeah, so I like Dr. Death. I like the style. I like the amateur and professional blend. And it goes back to the believability, the suspension of disbelief. And back then it was much more prevalent than it is because of the style they wrestled. And he looked like somebody you did not want to run into in a dark alley. Not the most muscular guy, not the hugest, but he was a big, wide man who was thick and had big ass arms, and his face looked like he was always freaking angry. And
Absolutely.
his wrestling style reflected that, and that's what I really liked about him. Um,
Yeah. No, I have nothing bad to say about the man. Like I said, he's the reason that Steve Austin exists because Steve Austin just wanted to be Steve Williams, but he walked in the locker room and they're like, we got a Steve Williams already. You're somebody else.
yep.
uh,
And the rest is history, as they say. Um,
absolutely.
But yeah, we talked a little bit about the Brawl for All, and that's the problem. The Brawl for All basically ruined his career, as it did Bart Gunn and a lot of other guys too.
And the thing that really makes me mad about ruining Bart Gunn's career, if Butterbean can be believed, and I don't have any reason not to believe him, he was willing to fight. According to him in interviews, he wanted to throw the fight. What good does it do him to win this thing in
Yep.
seconds? He was like, I'll lose. Just tell me how you want me to lose. They're like, nah, just be real. I was like, come on, guys, make Bart Gunn a star.
The dude, I like I said, never a huge Smoking Guns fan, but it was sad what happened to Bart Gunn, and
Absolutely.
because the
He goes
guy,
through hard times, and you won't just give him the thing that's going to be important.
yep, legit wins a tournament that nobody thought he would even come close to coming to the end in. And here he beats the bejesus out of anybody put in front of him. And yeah, they go out and it's like, yeah, this guy could go. Dude's Butterbean was like world famous at the time for the Tough
Exactly.
Man contest, which started in my home state, I believe, by a guy named Art Dorr, I think it was, that started doing those. I can't
That'd be
remember
cool.
exactly. But no, so he's willing to do the job, and they're like, Vince Russo, this is my good friend Jim Cornette says, well, then fucking Shitstain booked this thing because he had a hard on for JBL because he was a bully. But no,
Oh, that was a
that
good one.
was.
Dude,
Thank you.
I've hung out with Jim Cornette 3 times. That was a good Jim Cornette.
You know, I would love to do that for him. He blocked me on Twitter, though. That's another
Well,
story.
so it's always been in person. So he is friends with a friend of mine who runs a comic convention and owns comic stores. And
Okay.
so whenever he has him in for signings, I don't get his autograph anymore. I've already got that. I just pop in and just say, "Hey, how's it going?" to listen to him talk because it's funny.
Oh, dude, we have between me and CJP, we both do a Jim Cornette impression. So yeah, I've been, but I listen. That's the thing is like I listen to him religiously. Like every day, I'm listening to like at least an hour of Jim Cornette videos because outside of when he veers into politics, like
Right.
dude, wrestling knowledge and his history. The dude is a wrestling encyclopedia. That's what I love and respect about him. Uh,
Absolutely.
and he's been there and done that. So
Yeah.
I respect the guy's views and opinions. I don't always agree, but I respect him when it comes to wrestling. When he veers off of that, I'm like, Jimmy, that's why he blocked me on Twitter. Me and Tony, he blocked us both within an hour. But
Right.
no, so let's see, where was I at before I sidetracked myself? Dr. Death was my last one. Okay, so let's go. Let's go from Philadelphia down. Was that 95 to? I guess we could take 75 down to Hotlanta and pick up our next superstar from the World Championship Wrestling stable. And speaking of impressions, I guess there's only one way to do this one, Oz. Oh yeah, the cup of coffee. The cream always rises to the top, and then it pours over. I'm going with the Macho Man Randy Savage, of course.
I don't know how this guy's not strapped up. Like you say Randy Savage, that guy's getting strapped up. Like that's a top guy right there.
Oh, ever since I saw him, Steamboat at Mania 3.
Absolutely.
And I was watching a wrestling clinic when I didn't even know what a wrestling clinic was at that age, because I had to wait. Because, like I said, I live in Michigan and I really wanted to go. I'd been watching wrestling for 4 years at that point. I was 7. My mom started me watching when I was 3. And I wanted to go so bad. You're seeing it advertising superstars and all that, and it's like, oh my god, WrestleMania, and then it's like we couldn't afford to go, so she made up for it when it came back to Detroit for WrestleMania 23. Not as historic of a card, but still getting to see guys like Taker and Michaels, and even as much as people hate him, John Cena, which I was never a huge fan again, but the guy made an indelible mark on the business. But no, so I picked
that one too. That was one hell of an interest because that's the one where he drove in the Mustang, right?
Yep. He was
Yeah,
driving around. Yeah.
that's
Dude.
curious.
Yep, that was a precursor, man. Look at that foreshadowing. But yeah, because he's in the franchise now, isn't he? I believe. Yeah, because everybody's in Fast. Even Brie Larson's in there now. So her nasty curled up toes. But anyway,
sure.
I'm waiting for my invite. I just want to just be in there one time. They can just pull up next to me a light. And I'll just go and be like, family. But no, Macho Man was a no-brainer for me. And his time in WCW, when Vince thought he was ready to go out to pasture, guess what? He wasn't. The guy had another.
Just think about all of the guys Savage not only could have, but should have wrestled if Vince would have not been. I don't even know what put it in his head that he thought he was too old. Like, we could have had Randy Savage versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Like, I'm guaranteed there are other great matches.
Kurt Angle.
Well, exactly, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my God!
Dwayne Johnson actually wanted Vince to bring Savage in when he bought WCW so he could wrestle him.
Wait, who did?
Dwayne The Rock. The Rock wanted Vince to bring in Savage when he bought WCW.
Oh my God! Can you imagine the dude? To quote Gorilla Monsoon, the electricity would be so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, those personalities right there. I mean, you can't deny. You can say what you want about The Rock now, but you cannot deny that man's just charisma. His just after
Oh
he
yeah.
got over that ill-advised first babyface push when everybody's die Rocky die. I mean, him
That
and
ain't his fault.
Savage. No,
That,
no,
that
no. Like I said, it wasn't his fault. They saddled him with shit. That was
exactly.
Vince. That was
Yeah.
Vince. Vince was like, here you go, pal. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go out, you're going to smile, kid. They're going to love you, pal. Look, everybody agrees with me, right? Yes, Mr. McMahon. Yes, sir. Freaking Pat Patterson's down there. Yeah, that's a great idea, pal. Just go with it. They'll love you. Get out there, kid. Like,
Oh my goodness.
but yeah, him and Savage in like 99 to
Hmm.
even 2000, 2001, 2 into that because Randy was still in good shape.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
He just
Unfortunately, his last match was in TNA, and it was a trios match, just because he didn't have the confidence. Savage, that is.
mhm.
But yeah, man, if he would have got brought back to I'm gonna say the Fed,
Yeah.
to wrestle anybody, but especially Rock, just the promos alone, the building
Oh,
sold out.
yeah. Savage's promos were, and that's I was like I love. It's really hard to do that voice, but I
Yeah.
like doing it. You know, it's just a fun impression to do. But yeah, so Macho Man, and let's see, let's go back over to Japan, and um, I never saw this guy work until he came to WCW as part of the exchange, and it's Hiroshi Tenzan,
Oh yeah.
who he teamed with. It was Tenzan and I can't remember his partner's name when they came over. Tenzan and Chono, Masahiro Chono,
Hero
Masahiro
Chunk.
Chono and Tenzan team together. But yeah, I liked his work. I liked his because he'd wear the sunglasses and the leather. I liked that. He had a cool look, and I was, if you can't tell by this is just I'm shilling my merch here, but the new Wokuian Order. I'm an NWO fan. When I was in when I was in the business, our stable team ratings was an NWO tribute stable, and I was basically Scott Hall. I love the NWO, so when they brought guys in like that, it was like, oh, new blood that's not Vincent. All right, you know.
Yeah.
It was cool, and I dug that exchange between WCW and Japan. I wish it could have paid bigger dividends for them and really helped them broaden out and make more money, but there was a lot more things than that WCW suffered along the way, the pratfalls and ills, and led to their downfall. But they did put on some great shows and bring in some wonderful talent and carry a massive roster of up to like over 100 guys a month sometimes, which I had a document that was somebody leaked it. It was from official WCW Turner payroll, and it had salaries for like 40 of the like mid card to lower card guys and showed how much they make or lost in merchandise. Dude, guys like Rage and Chaos are making like $270,000 a year.
Dude, I was such a mark for High Voltage, Raging Chaos.
Me too. Me
Like,
too. I stay,
I
dude. Yes.
I hated it when I found out that WCW stole Matt Hardy's concept of High Voltage and gave it to them. But I can't even be mad at them. I thought they were so cool when I was growing up.
Hmm. Yeah, I like them. I was like, man, why don't these guys like? Why don't they? I was like, they've got the look. They're not bad in the ring. I think if they let them shine and develop more, they really could have been something. Honestly,
I
those
I,
guys.
I think developing and advancing people was one of the things that WCW really struggled with.
Yeah,
Uh, I talked about that with Josiah recently about how I thought uh, I know you're a big Hogan fan, right? But I thought guys like yeah that were established, whether it be Hogan or Savage, again,
yeah.
no knock on him, but I just
No,
felt like with always being at the top, it made it a struggle for other people to get to that top tier.
Oh, it
Now,
absolutely did.
there were a handful of guys who broke through with like Page and Goldberg, obviously, but
Yep.
like one of the people I really thought should have or could have gotten further was Raven. I
Oh
thought
my
Raven
God. Yes.
thought Raven could have been a top guy in
A
more than just
million times, yes. Dude, his again, I talk a lot about the psychology and the acumen for the business. You're hard pressed to find anybody smarter than Scott Levy. You
dude.
are. You
I
are.
was with this a DVD called Secrets of the Ring with Raven. Uh, me and the guy, I mean, he wasn't the only person I was training with, but me and my friend who we started wrestling training together. We watched that thing like it was I don't even know what, like it was going to lead us to the promised land, right?
Mm-hmm.
He recently found it on YouTube and did a review because it was so important to us. But
Yeah.
he Raven or Scott Levy, he was talking about how just learn a handful of moves, get those good, and then tell a story. Like you don't need to know all the moves because he was using Elix Skipper as an example. He was like,
Yep.
Elix, you know all these moves, but what is prime time? He's like, that's what I call myself. He's like, but why and what does it mean? Like, understand who you are, not just how to do moves.
Yes, and that like I see that's one thing I always once I was like when I was in and I started working full time in the ring, like I understood that with like because I was an announcer, I was a ring announcer, and I had a gimmick. I was Pete Daddy Dollar. I had a gimmick. I came down to entrance music. I popped the crowd. I jumped up on. I hit all four turnbuckles. I do the ear gimmick, and the crowd. I'd have them right here the entire night. No matter how much of a stinker went on before or after I came out, I would make that crowd pop. And trust me, the boys, they'd appreciate it. If they were sitting on their hands during a match, I'm like, no, I ain't trying to get in. A lot of them got pissed because like you're just trying to get shot. I'm like, no, 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 no. You see how they act when you're out there? That's not because of me the whole time, but I'm getting them warmed up for you. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, that's my job is to
The opening,
facilitate that crowd being hot when you come out. That's why
yeah.
I love doing that, man. And that's what made me want to wrestle more was because like I'd wrestle spot matches because like I said, I was partially trained enough to work, with the right person in the ring that was experienced enough. They'd never book me with anybody that wasn't in for like 6-7 years, and they were confident because I was baby. They'd always put me in with a fucking veteran heel, and I'm like, sweet, I'm gonna go out and get my ass beat, do a roll up and win. That's what I did. I'd go out and I'd let them mop the fucking floor with me. And I get, a little hope spot here or there. Like, I use the stunner. Out of fucking it. I was going RKO out of nowhere before Randy was doing. No, but no, it was funny though because like I remember I crotched dude on the corner and he fell down and he's selling his nuts. And big shout out to my man Mark Galloway who's he's in bodybuilding now. He's from Ohio, around Columbus. Great dude, great fucking dude. But yeah, he was my very first official match, and dude, he'd been in for almost 10 years, and he put me over.
That's what's
And I didn't have boots. I was wrestling in like warm ups in a tank top, and my future tag team partner, who brought me into the business, James fucking said, "Wear my boots." He goes, "They've never been in a good match anyway. You might as well wear them." And literally, this is what he said to me, and I'm like, "You fucker!" So I go out and we're wrestling in this bingo hall, and the kitchen is right there, which was our locker room, and you could lift up the grate that comes down and covers the window where you would serve from, which was the owner of the promotion's office. So I could see when I was out in the ring waiting for Mark to come out because they let me come out first as the baby for some reason because I was, I was the commissioner. And I look back and they're all looking out. All I see is eyes underneath about that much of the grate. And I got my ass beat for about 10 minutes. Like I said, a couple little hope spots. And, well, it started out I was wrestling the other commissioner. And Mark was his guy. So after I laid out JJ, Mark, he goes, he gets out of the ring, gets him like, I'm not doing this with Pete Daddy Dollar anymore. I'm not a wrestler. I'm not built like this, blah, blah, blah. He's bigger than me. So he goes, I got somebody have my back. Here comes Black Velvet. Was he Black Velvet? No, that was Gerald. Gerald was Black Velvet. Mark, I can't remember Mark's nickname, but Mark come out and he just comes in and I'm like, and he just starts putting it, just laying it in, putting the boot, body slam, suplex, gets me in the corner, running kick to the face, coast to coast. I sold the shit out of it. Drags me out. I did the buckle thing. He picked me up, dragged me out. I back bumped. He gets up on the ropes and JJ's like, yeah, and he hits the ropes and I kind of bump him and crotch Mark on the ropes. He goes down. He's standing up selling his nuts and I come up and hit a fucking stunner on him and, double down. And I get up and he gets up and just waffles me again. And we worked into it and I got behind him and all of a sudden he got down and he's going to pick me up and I just rolled him up real quick. 1, 2, 3. And I go and I'm selling it like I just won the fucking Super Bowl. And he gets up and just because it was a roll up, and he's like, what? And starts putting the boots to me. Gerald comes running out. They're stomping the shit out of me. Like I'm just getting massacred. And two of the other baby faces that were going to work a tag match with them come out and made the save for me. And I powdered and, got my shine as I'm going out, being held up like, But that was my very first official match. But it was a freaking blast. Now that I've taken it way off topic, with my
while we're off topic, so you won your first official match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I lost every match, and for I think 2.5 years. It might have even been 3 years before I had one win. But I got to tell you, I loved losing. It was so, like, don't get me wrong. When I won, it was fine. But losing was so fun because I was a rich kid. It was my character. And so I always had heavies that were, which is funny because I'm friggin' humongous, but whatever. I always had guys who were, I was paying to do work for me, and it was just a lot of fun because, especially with kids, like, because my whole thing was I would wear suits because I was rich, and I would answer the phone because it was important business, and oh man, I freaking loved being bad, and I especially loved losing because they would all laugh at me, the kids, and it was just it was such a good time,
dude. I'm trying to think because I know I took. At least, well, it was actually it was because the way we were being booked, I only took maybe two losses in a year and a half. One of them was a tag match, and we got DQ'd because of that. We were doing, like I said, NWO. We did a schmaz. We were about to lose, and my tag partner comes in because I'm pinned, and I don't. Yeah, it was Brody, I think, we were working who was trained by Lance Storm, and that's Brody trained me. And him and my buddy Jared, who's just a referee now, he's a bodybuilder and a wrestler now. They own Super Shogun Pro Wrestling, which I was invited to be a part of, and I at first I was just gonna go in and announce. I accepted it. And as I thought more about why I left the business in the first place, I said, I talked to my boy Jared. I'm like, bro, I can't do it. I says, every fiber of my being wants to, but you and I both know why I can't. He goes, exactly, it's family. And I said, yep. So I bowed out, but I'm gonna start going to the shows in August and doing some live streams from them because they have their first show was I did think they did 500.
That's awesome.
For it. Outdoor show at a fair. In his hometown, which is, not too, about 15-20 minutes from me. So it's a short trip down the E-way over there. And I'll be checking it. He's got a gorgeous building. He has a permanent building, permanent ring setup. His entrance is going to be a castle with a drawbridge that opens, and he's a prop builder.
Okay.
So the dude has built an entire Dracula suit of armor and taken it with him overseas. I mean, he's a talented dude. Like,
awesome.
So Brody was the one that hit me with the gimmick, this finish. James come in he had a megaphone. He'd come down the ring talking with a megaphone. He had big sunglasses that you could put text on. And, like I'm wrestling, it'd just say Pete Daddy Dollar is God on him or something like that, or Go Pete Go or something like that on him. So he hit him with the megaphone and got thrown out. And then all like 6 of our guys come out of the back and we're just out there laying the boots to him, his tag partner creature feature come out with a chair and, you know, kind of shoot us all off, which to me, I'm like, and he was the owner of the company. But I don't want to speak ill about him.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. No, I feel you.
fuck, but the hell with that guy. But he would whenever I was working with him, and he's a baby face, I'm a heel. He would always book himself stronger than me, which made no sense whatsoever. It's like, dude, I will put you over. I have no problem doing that, but I should be getting most of the heat on you the entire match. Like you get no. Dude, I took so many big moves during those matches. And I'm like, what? I go back and I just shake my head. I'm like, man, I'm glad I was drunk that whole fucking time.
So you're
I was. That's my
gimmick.
I was legitimately, at least buzzed. There's a few times I was pretty lit that I wrestled during the last year and a half. But I was never unsafe and I never hurt anybody because I never did anything that I thought would put somebody at risk, because it's like, would I do that move? Like, dude, I could take a couple punches and a kick and a rope choke, and it's as good as a fucking moonsaw the way I could sell it to the crowd. But that's because I was trained by Tennessee boys who specialized in storytelling. So, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But anyway, let me bring it back to my last pick here of the second round. Which is, we are going to go back up north to Stamford, Connecticut, Titan Sports offices for my last pick. It will be Mr. Marvelous Mark Marrow, another Brawl for All guy who suffered a ill fate, and well, I mean, being emasculated by your wife on national television is far worse and soon to be ex-wife is far worse than, you know, losing a fight to somebody who is bigger and stronger than you, even though he was a boxer.
Right.
I loved Mark Marrow. God, man, from Johnny B. Bad, which I didn't really like the gimmick, but I always liked him. You know, I thought it was kind of a fruity gimmick.
I didn't like Johnny B. Bad because I didn't understand Johnny B. Bad.
I didn't, not at the time.
But I liked his abilities. I thought he had great wrestling ability, and I enjoyed Teddy Long. I liked having Teddy on the outside.
Yes.
He had great matches with Dallas Page. Like,
they had a nice program
later on in his career. I mean, well, both of them really. Then getting called up to Vince's land and getting the Wild Man character. While it wasn't the best, I do think Marvelous Mark is better than Wild Man. I thought Wild Man Mark Marrow was a step up from the confusion of the Bad Blaster, Johnny B. Bad, makeup, all that stuff. I thought Wild Man was at least a step in the right direction. But as soon as he got the Marvelous Mark Marrow with the boxer shorts and the coat, the whatever that hat's called,
the robe and everything. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and like just the whole look changed too, with the short hair and the beard. Like it was good. It was it was the way that he should have been. And had it not been for, like you said, him being emasculated, he may have actually gotten a top level push, because I don't know how true it is, but the internet says that Steve Austin refused to wrestle him after he took his finish from his wife. He was like, I'm not going in there and taking any offense from him because he got beat up by his wife. He's like, I would have to just squash him, which that do him any good anyway.
And then Steve Austin's like, I'll never let my wife beat me.
Oh crap. Wow.
I had a meme of him and I think Liv Morgan together, and he's sitting there and his fist, I looked at his hand and I'm like, you could just look at his face, and I had the meme was like, Stone Cold to Liv Morgan, you look like Deborah.
Oh my goodness.
But no, man, I heard that same thing about him not wanting to take any offense from Marrow, and I can believe it because I said the same thing about Tessa Blanchard going over on Brian Cage and Sami Callihan. I'm like, look, I'm not going to say, take what you want about her personally, because I don't like her. I don't like her personally. I don't think she's a good person. But I might be wrong. I'm I, I might be wrong. But
Sure, I don't
her
know.
her in ring ability, I mean, she lets some Mark paid her to record herself dropping a deuce, and that's legit. Like Corny and Last listened to the podcast. I that's where I heard it. I was like, it's legit. But anyway, her and throwing racial epithets out at other workers, which is absolutely abhorrent and uncalled for. Um, so, but they did kind of dogpile on her on Twitter afterwards. Anyway, back to my point before I veer off again into another tangent because I'm old. Um, it's, I'm too busy yelling at clouds most of the day. No,
I
her.
from what you said that you listened to them listen to.
I do I wouldn't I still haven't recovered from that, and I just re-listened to because I was like listening to a playlist of all Cornette stuff and it came up and I'm like, oh no, this is that episode. But no, she hit Cage with a Canadian destroyer. She beat Sammy Callahan, and it's like so they can never be taken seriously again. And I like Brian Cage. I think he's severely underutilized in AEW. The same way Wardlow is now after that deal with MJF last year at Double or Nothing. He should have been feuding for him with the title this year. That
Right.
should have been a year-long feud. But anyway, no, I Mark Marrow. What they did, the way they booked that with him and Sable was it was bad. It ruined him. It did, and it's sad because the guy had all the tools in the toolbox to build a amazing career around. And not that he didn't have I would say, I don't know, between good. I mean, I don't want to say great because I don't want to sound like Dave Meltzer. I don't want to. You never want to sound like Uncle Dave. But I mean, was he a great talent? I truly believe Mark Merrill was a great talent. His career was good because he never got to where he should have been.
I
Is
agree.
my
I agree.
appraisal.
I agree with your assessment, and yeah, I struggle with great as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of my reviews on the channel, I'll be like, it's fine or it's good, but like, yeah, great that's a whole other level, and so I totally understand. But yeah, as far as tools and talent, the guy was a really good talker.
Yep.
He was a believable wrestler, and if not for the Sable stuff, he could have gone further. And I
Yep.
agree. But I've got to talk about my 8-man tournament because whatever I do, I've got to get these thoughts of Tessa Blanchard out of my head. So we begin. It's okay. It was just very unexpected. We begin with ECW's Jerry Lynn taking on New Japan Pro Wrestling's Scott Flash Norton. In this contest, the way I envision it playing out is Jerry Lynn attempting to use his speed to take down Scott Norton, but the big man is just too much for Jerry Lynn, and he advances on into the tournament because, well, I mean, Scott Norton, like I said, top guy, heavyweight, strong man, friggin' arm wrestling champion. Like,
Yeah.
he is a guy that, not only did Japan push, but I think that America could have done better with. So he advances on. So my next match, which is WCW versus WWF, Booker T taking on Ken Shamrock. The thing about this match, though, is I think that had Ken Shamrock stuck with wrestling, not only could this match have happened in, like, let's say 2001, 2002, but had Ken Shamrock stayed in the WWF, I swear the guy could have been Brock Lesnar before Brock Lesnar was Brock Lesnar. Because there's nothing that Brock had, other than youth, obviously, that Ken didn't have. As far as the believability, the presence of character of being there and just be like, yeah, this guy is something special. And as much as I'm putting over Ken Shamrock verbally, he is going to put over Booker T in the match. And the reason being is I'm using Ken's legitimacy to make Booker look double tough by being able to overcome the fighter by out wrestling him. And so Booker advances on into the next round by outsmarting Ken Shamrock and advancing. So from here, we get. I don't know if this match has ever happened, but if it has, I will for sure pop some pretty pictures up because just imagining the Great Muta versus Rob Van Dam feels like a match that I not only want to see, but I would pay good money to watch because these are two fellas who not only have the educated feet, as they say, but just do things you wouldn't expect from the business. And the guy going over here is Mr. Monday Night, Mr. Pay Per View, Rob Van Dam, because, well, I don't really have a legit reason because they're just both so strong. They're both so good at what they do, but I just got a soft spot for RVD, and so I have him advance on to the what is it, the I don't know, whatever you call it. Oh, the Final Four. That's what I was looking for. And so the last match of the Elite Eight, that is World Championship Wrestling's former Lionheart and current conspiracy theorist Chris Jericho coming in here believing that the deck has been stacked against him when he has to take on a man trained by the Hart family, a man who was guided by Arn Anderson and Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen, and one of the founding members of this Hart Foundation of the new era, the loose cannon Brian Pillman. So these two Canadian Stampede Wrestling standouts go out and just prove why Canadian wrestling was always among the best by showing that they are great at what they do. Obviously, Pillman at this point has had many surgeries and all kinds of bad luck, whether it's car accidents or, like I said, just born with health issues. But even at even not being able to give his 100%, Brian Pillman is able to pull off the victory here over Chris Jericho and get to the Final Four of this tournament because I have to put over Brian Pillman. He is the man who gave me hope for being able to make it in professional wrestling. He's the guy that when I heard him be announced in WCW being from Cincinnati, Ohio, I was like, hey, not only do I know where that is, I've been there. And if this guy can do it, maybe there's a chance for this kid from nowhere, Ohio. So yeah, that is the opening round of my tournament. My final four are Scott Flash Norton, a big monster, Booker T, who went through hell, Rob Van Dam, and Brian Pillman.
I like your breakdowns. I like your analysis of the matches. You do this. You do the same thing. I do that like when I'm. It might sound so like when I'm playing like because I still play a lot of WWF No Mercy, and like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I've created the entire almost the entire roster from '95 to '01 from WCW, and I book cards like I write them out. I write out match cards. I've got locations. I've got venues. And I got running storylines. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 legal pads, plus I've got all the created codes for all the wrestlers I've made on there, how to make them all. And I do that too in my head. I'm like, okay, how would this match go before I start it? And it's like it's so much fun to have
Absolutely.
like because you've got the entire WWF roster from that period, and then you've got all the creator wrestlers, and it's like the booking is just it's endless, and it's like I don't get to because that's why because I do Nitro, I do Thunder, and I do Saturday Night, and then I do all the pay per views. Um, and it's like it's fun because I go back and I use the schedules from each year and the venues and all that stuff like that, and then like I'll mix them up and I'll put them in like different regions and stuff. It is, man. It's fun. Like to go back and look at names like the Norfolk Scope and stuff like that. Like such a legendary venue, the Memphis Coliseum and yeah.
Yeah, that that concept reminds me of me and Josiah, our corporate merger of World Championship Wrestling and World Wrestling Federation, Alpha Entertainment Worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
That show that we run, because we make sure that the shows stay happening where they happen, but we can rename things, and we're only allowed to use the talent for the period of time that they're actually employed. But then we take
Yeah.
things in a whole different direction, right? So, like, instead of doing the Un-Americans, I put together a group called the Regal Counter Threat, because it's a chess term, the counter threat. And so yeah, it's fun to be creative with all
Yep.
these things, and it's honestly one of the reasons why I think that if I ever had a large stack of dollars, I'd be running my own shows just for the fun of it.
Yep. I could do that. You know, it'd be if I thought about that, it'd be so much fun to do. You know, just because I still have like contacts in the business, I call them and be like, hey, I'm gonna throw a show together. You know, I can give you, $100, come in, whatever. You know, do a match. You know, you got to work a tag match or whatever. Bah, bah, bah. And the thing is, like, I'm not booking any gimmick matches. Maybe one, but not the main,
Mm-hmm.
semi-main. Main event, it's like me, if I'm thinking like I'm booking a show, what am I going to put in my main? It's going to be a title match. I want my title match because that's one thing I always had against WCW was they have so many like screw job finishes, and those have a place. But in a title match, especially a big title match, I want to see the Goldberg Hogan ending from Atlanta.
Absolutely,
That's what I
that's
want to see. Clean,
mhm.
clean, no interference. It's clean. That crowd just boom, and that's the kind of shit. If you, like I said, it's psychology. It's just psychology, and yeah, that's a lot of you look at a lot of promoters, a lot of bookers, they just don't. It's sad because they're in a position where they should have that knowledge, but there's somebody that's like Tony Khan, um, who books because he's the booker, he's the promoter, he's trying to be friends with the boys. That doesn't work. That's how you get with the Young Bucks and Omega in that EVP position and their whole, like that whole CM Punk deal. It's like, never been the biggest CM Punk fan. I respect the heck out of the guy. Never been a huge fan, just, I mean, like I said, I respect him. I respect his work. I'm happy to see him coming back because right now AEW needs it because I want to see them succeed. I do. We have had almost 2 decades of no competition, and I'm looking at you, Impact. No
Yeah,
competition.
dude. I'm I know that this is such a low bar to jump, but I'm just amazed they're still alive.
I don't know how. I
Like,
do not know how.
I'm just like, you did it, you lived, you didn't succeed, but you stayed on life support.
We've what is it since '04? They started, was it '04? I think Impact came around something, or '02.
Uh,
But between '02 and
so
'04.
I think it was 2002, because they came about after the invasion, and the
Mm-hmm.
invasion was won. So I think it was like August of 2002. I do
All
feel like it was
right.
a summertime. So
Yeah. Yeah, because there was a lot of there was obviously a ton of WCW guys that came in there. I mean, you had some new faces, some of the TNA originals, but yeah,
Ron
that
Killings
was
was one of the top guys that they had in those early
yeah,
days,
yep,
because he was actually treated seriously. That's what blows me away
yeah,
about the haha that he does now. Is
yeah. He was he was the
yeah, but
NWA World Champion back then.
exactly.
Yep, and yeah, they made him into a joke. It was ridiculous. The guy has so much athletic ability. It was ridiculously stupid, you know. But what do you do? What do you do? Here's what we're gonna do, pal. We're gonna
Ah,
make this
so
guy a
fine.
joke.
Ah,
It's
so
great,
fine.
pal.
Ah,
Everybody's gonna love it, pal.
so are you ready to break down your tournament?
Yeah,
Tell me who
absolutely.
it
All right.
on.
All right. So, is this done under your promotion? Is this done under your promotion's banner?
No. It's whatever promotion you want this to be happening in.
Well,
It's Pete Daddy
this is
Dollar Promotions.
oh
Whatever
no,
it is.
this is this I'm gonna name this after my old promotion. This is Absolute Entertainment Pro Wrestling, um, which was
I like that. That's good.
that we started out as NWA Absolute Entertainment Pro Wrestling because we were an NWA affiliate, but we dropped that because of money because
Sure. Yeah.
it costs money to be an affiliate, and we
Yeah.
weren't seeing any financial benefit. So it was like, all
Yeah.
right,
Well,
let's
good.
just
Yeah.
yeah. So we were Absolute Entertainment Pro Wrestling, and this is run under that banner. This show takes place on my birthday, Saturday, April 19th, 1997.
I like that they're both on Saturdays. That's fun.
It is. It's cool. This took place at 6:05 Eastern, and our opening contest was from ECW. We had the franchise Shane Douglas against Hiroshi Tenzan from New Japan, and it was obviously a back and forth. I gave Douglas a very fair amount of shine. Tenzan, Tenzan was Tenzan in this, but Douglas ended up going over after a distraction and a Pittsburgh plunge in the middle of the ring.
I
One,
like
two,
it.
three,
Yeah. No,
and Douglas
I'm down for that.
and Shane moved on there. And next we have from WCW, ooh yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage against ECW's Dr. Death Steve Williams. Um,
I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. Okay. So
this
this is
is a
a heck of an opening round match.
uh-huh.
So I totally thought these guys were going to cross paths later, but nah, you're doing it early. I like it.
We're bringing the Thunder early. Hard hitting match. A lot, and I really wanted these two to pair up because, and I did it early because I want to pop that crowd. I want to pop that crowd, and the hard hitting style that these two could do, but go back to that technical and do that back and forth style with this. But there's really in my head, there's really only one way this one could have went, and it had to go to the madness.
Yeah.
Macho
So
Man,
as it was playing out in my head, I saw this as a very 1990s Savage babyface
yes,
run where he's getting beat down, but it's Randy Savage. Like, how can you doubt the man? Like, yeah, he's just a top guy. I mean, no knock on Dr. Death, but yeah,
no,
yeah, he's getting
no.
the offense, but yeah, Savage has to go over.
Yep. That was yeah, he it's an elbow drop. How else could especially with him as a baby.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one way that goes, and he's got to hit the elbow drop because it wouldn't do Dr. Death justice to lose with a quick roll up in a match like that.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Number 3, we have New Japan Pro Wrestling's Yushin Thunder Liger against WWF's marvelous one, Mark Marrow, in a absolutely nonstop, acrobatic, yet technically proficient match in this one. Liger comes out on top.
I have to ask, do you think they ever touched in WCW? I know they were there
They
around the
were
same,
theirs. I
but I just
I
can't remember a time they ever were in the ring together.
I don't remember it at all. I never. That's such a missed opportunity, isn't it?
Oh, that's so fun. That's so fun. This card, man, this card is just like it's just it's dreams. Their dreams come true. Like they're things that I didn't even know I wanted until you said them. I was like, my God, yeah, please. I mean, I
Yep.
think there's a good chance that Randy and Steve are doing it right now. They're putting that show on in the great beyond.
Oh, you imagine the crowd for that one.
Ooh,
Yeah. So Liger goes over in that. leaving our last first round match a WWF versus WCW match. These two would actually meet in WCW. We have Psycho Sid versus Chris Benoit in our.
Dude, dude, this was for the WCW title. It's the
Yes, it
freaking
was.
the match that Benoit's like, don't put the belt on me, and Kevin's like, but I'm gonna put the belt on you. He's like, don't do it. And then he's like,
Yep.
here, have the belt. I'm going. I'm leaving. Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Yep. So
Oh, that's
this
so fun.
this one is Sid going just full on Sid on Chris, but Chris getting those little hope spots, starts attacking the leg. Those short drop kicks, running tackle from behind. He's using. What's up?
Uh, no matter how big he is, they're all the same size laying down. That's what Mr.
Yep.
Perfect said when Bret Hart was wrestling Diesel. Oh my goodness, it's the only way to do the match is to
Yep.
work the leg. Oh, it's so smart.
And that's what happens until he gets him. He's gonna get him locked in the crossface. Sid breaks it. Benoit. Sid gets up. Benoit. German. Lays him out. Sid's laid out up top. Diving headbutt. 1, 2, 3. The crippler goes over on Sid.
Dude, your final four is Jushin Thunder Liger, Chris Benoit, Randy Savage, and Shane freaking Douglas, the franchise. My goodness, that's a heck of a final four right there.
Mm.
Oh my god, that is good stuff right there.
Yeah.
So I know last time I went and then Josiah finished out the show, but I just got to know how this ends. Tell me who wins in this final, who goes over in the final four before. I'm enthralled. I got to know.
All right. So we got Shane Douglas and Savage first up, which is another just. I mean, these two. Like I said, were they ever in the ring together that I can recall? He was Dean Douglas.
So I can think of one match that they may have been in the same match, but I don't think they were even in it at the same time. So I was rewatching the Royal Rumble from 1991. No, yes, 91. Because I meant to watch 92, but I watched 91 by accident. And Shane Douglas was in the match, and I believe Savage was also in the match, but I don't think they were even in the match at the same time. That's how crazy. And like when Shane Douglas was with the Revolution, with Asia and all that stuff, Savage was the top guy with Team Madness. So I don't think they were even touched in either. But those are the only two occasions where they even took they had the opportunity to maybe be in the ring, but I don't think it's ever happened.
No, they've never. I don't think they've ever had. They never had a one-on-one, which is a crime. That's
Absolutely.
a crime. That's like The Rock and Michaels never. Working a program. It really is. But so Shane and Savage. Savage obviously the baby in this. Shane's the heel. So Shane's gonna do heel Shane Douglas stuff. He's gonna cheap shot, low blow, rake the eyes. Macho is great at putting that stuff over. Shane gets him set up for the plunge, hits it. 1, 2, up goes the shoulder. Shane can't believe it. So he's trying everything he can. These little cheap heat spots, and Savage catches him with starts hitting him with the jabs, feet into the ropes, Manhattan drop, short arm clothesline. Shane gets up stumbling. Savage picks him up out of character, hits him with a pile driver. Then go because he wants to put that exclamation point on it because Shane did so much dirty shit. Randy just picks him up. Pile driver. Then it's time. Goes up top. Elbow. Randy's over. Randy's going to the finals right there. So yeah, that match would be just phenomenal.
Absolutely. I love your show. Like, I don't know what you're charging for admission, but I'm all in.
You get a front row. You get a front row in the house. We give you some drink tickets. But next we got Jushin Thunder Liger against Chris Benoit, which this one would just be a barn burner. Just a technically proficient masterpiece, some aerials, but it's got to come down to Benoit going. Benoit goes over with the crippler crossface on this one.
I almost
He's gonna wear
think,
Liger down.
well, I almost think that it makes sense because of how much damage he went through with Sid.
Yep.
That if he didn't overcome Liger, that it would almost be for nothing. And so, yeah, as I was playing it out in my head, I was like, man, as much as I love Jushin Liger, I think that Benoit has to go over just for proving that the Sid thing wasn't for nothing. Like, oh yeah, and then Benoit versus Savage. My goodness.
We've got a WCW final.
Yep. I mean, uh, I don't know about you, but I was more of a WCW kid growing up, so I can
Me too.
understand that.
Me too. Um, so we've got Chris and we've got Randy. This is a baby versus baby matchup. Um,
Absolutely.
but but while Benoit has the upper hand, while Benoit has the upper hand, Randy's gonna do what Randy does because Randy wants to win, and here comes that heel turn, and
So good at it.
Benoit Benoit is gonna go to set up the German. Randy runs into the official. Official takes a face bump into the buckle. Randy kind of goes back, headbutts Chris. Chris is selling the face. Randy reaches into the tights, grabs the gimmick. Chris turns around, one shot. He's out. Referee's turning around. Randy shakes him, gets up on the top, hits the elbow. 1, 2, 3, goes over. Hides the gimmick before heel turn, and he wins the tournament.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so good. So good. So the minute you said Randy Savage was in this thing, I was like, how is he not? He's got to be your top guy. And then the turn on top of it made it extra special because when you have babyface for babyface in the finals, it's like okay. We'll see who has the better talent. But when you add that turn, that's just that cherry on top of that delicious sundae. And so I'm all about it. I think that was freaking money right there. Like, I love that. I hope that I can live up to it. But the thing is that even if my card falls short, I know there's a personal attachment to this show that we'll get into when we get to the climax. But before we can get to the finish, we gotta build to it. And so the first semifinal match is Scott Flash Norton versus Booker T, two guys who are known for World Championship Wrestling, one from Vicious and Delicious and one from the Harlem Heat. But here, Norton is, that tip-top guy from New Japan style. And Booker, not quite on his top level here at this point. And so while Booker is trying his best and working hard, he came into this match the walking wounded. He barely can walk given all the offense that Ken Shamrock laid into him. And so that makes Scott Norton's job even easier to take out Booker T because of how damaged he is coming into the finals. And so Scott does go over. He doesn't do anything nefarious. He's just intelligent about his wrestling, and uses Booker's shortcomings against him. The fact that he's coming in there hurt.
Mm-hmm.
As much as Jerry Lynn was a good match for Norton in the opening round, he wasn't that same danger level that Booker had to go through with Ken Shamrock. And so that's why Scott goes over and he makes it to the finals. But next up is a personal dream match of mine, a man from Battle Creek, Michigan, taking on a man from Cincinnati, Ohio. Rob Van Dam versus Brian Pillman. So because of this match taking place on September the 27th of 1997. And I'm pretty sure I already said this, but Pillman comes into this thing not at tip top shape. Like the whole reason we had Pillman's Got a Gun on Raw is because Pillman had to have surgery, and they did the Pillmanizing of his ankle on TV. And I mean that's a thing that's used to this day in verbiage is somebody or something being Pillmanized. They did it because Steve Austin, who's friends with Brian Pillman, wanted to help his friend get storyline and written off TV. And so one of the most iconic and time tested things that Pillman Got a Gun angle wouldn't have happened had it not been for the fact that Pillman actually had to go get surgery. So Rob Van Dam throughout this entire contest is a step ahead of Pillman. He's got the youth on his side. He's got the ego on his side. He's even got Bill Alfonso on his side out there just talking him up. But the thing that Pillman has in this match that Van Dam doesn't is a drive that isn't having him play to the crowd like Rob Van Dam does. Like Van Dam will, do the thumb pointing thing while looking away. He'll be egotistical, do jump kicks in the air just cause. And so at one of these points, even though Pillman is down and seemingly beat, when Rob Van Dam plays to the crowd, he gets caught. Van Dam's up on the turnbuckle, and Pillman is sick of it. So he double axe handle. He knocks Van Dam down. He's Pillman at this point is being aggressive. He feels as though he's being shortchanged via the way that Van Dam is treating him, and so it's what leads to Pillman not holding back and actually cheating to win the match. He doesn't care because he's advancing on, puts his feet on the rope, holds the singlet. It doesn't matter because a win is a win. And the craziest part, though, about this whole victory is it's almost as though Brian Pillman has stepped out of the frying pan and right into the dang fire because he beat Rob Van Dam barely. And yes, he got past Chris Jericho, God knows how, but how in the hell is, Brian Pillman, a man who has most of his leg fused together, a guy who was born with like cancerous polyps on his throat. How's this guy going to overcome a walking wall of a man known as Scott Flash Norton? And even though it defies all logic, and I cannot even give you a how. I mean, I guess if I had to tell you how Brian Pillman overcomes Scott Flash Norton is no different than how Daniel Bryan overcomes Dave Bautista and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30. It is just through sheer willpower, because on Saturday, September the 27th of 1997, Brian Pillman wins the tournament and becomes my first ever top guy in Mr. Super Oz WrestleFest, or at Mr. Super Oz WrestleFest here at 97. But the reason that happens, the reason Brian Pillman, my favorite wrestler of all time, goes over is because, unfortunately, he doesn't live another month. Before October is over, Brian Pillman is no longer with us in 1997. And so that's the reason that I chose to run the show on my birthday and put over my favorite wrestler of all time, the guy who gave me hope for wrestling, the guy who made me think, oh, yes, this dream is far-fetched, but I mean, this guy, he made it, and I think I can do it. And so that's the reason why that I chose Brian Pillman. And it's because it's just the idea of wanting to believe that you can achieve what you set your mind to. And he's the guy who made that possible for me. And so I wanted to give him this, in some magical world where I have a time machine and can book it, I would love to do that.
Hell yeah, man. That that final is a veritable David versus Goliath. Um, Especially like you said, with Pillman, going through the tournament the way he did, two very formidable foes, and then Norton, this, like you said, a wall of a man. And I always found that astounding about Norton is like just the sheer size of him. Then you learn, yeah, the guy's an arm wrestler, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. He's got tree trunks attached to his shoulders, like
Exactly.
just a mountain. And yeah, the dude was like just a freaking powerhouse in the ring. Like to this day, it never ceases to amaze me how wrong they booked him. And Pillman, yeah, I remember the whole Pillman's got a gun thing, and Austin coming into his house, and him with the cane, and God, dude.
Bethany was right there too.
But I remember him also flying Brian and the Z Man tagging when
Hmm.
they, when he first came into WCW back in the day, the first time around. It was just like, it
Yeah,
was
the baby
crazy.
got me. That babyface run is what that was the first Brian Pillman that I saw. That moment where I was like, oh wow, this guy is representing a place that not only that I know but I've been, he's the guy who gave me hope, and I just love
Yeah.
it. I love it. But and the also the idea. Now I didn't know this at the time when I first saw him, but when I found out years later that he was so looked down upon that even though he was a great football player, everybody passed him up going to college, and he walked on to Miami of Ohio and made the team. And the same happened when it came to the NFL draft. They just who wants the little guy, who wants this
Yep.
nobody. He walks on to the Cincinnati Bengals and he makes the team. And had it
Yeah.
not been for the same people that he was coming up with doing extra good, he very easy like he won the Ed Lock Courage Award his rookie year. Like I only know that because of Jim Ross telling me because I don't watch football, but still, I also don't know who that guy the award's named after is. But it's the principle that he was known for overcoming. He was just a freaking fighter, and I
Yep.
loved him. I love that guy. Like I yeah, I'm a big fan. I had this dream once, not a literal dream, but this fantasy where I could book a revived World Championship Wrestling. So I booked it in Full Sail University. So this was in the time where they put NXT head to head with or it was like becoming more prominent, right? You got Joe and Balor and all those guys. So I was like, okay, so we'll take NXT out of Full Sail, but we'll relaunch WCW and put it in that hot crowd at Full Sail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the match that I wanted to be the opening match of a revived WCW was Brian Pillman Jr. versus Jushin Thunder Liger because I was like, that's the way to pay respect to the first Nitro. It's a way
Yep.
to use Jushin Liger again, not just the one off they did with him in NXT. And I love Brian Pillman Jr. He's a guy that I follow, and I'm like, come on, kid, you can do it.
Hell
but,
yeah.
but no,
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on.
Dude,
I love your
absolutely.
tournament. It's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see what other people think as we go forward with
Yeah.
the 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 gimmick. but
Absolutely, man. Yeah, this was a
yeah,
lot of fun.
oh,
I love
thank you.
fantasy booking, dude.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, so this will be a channel regular once a month. Next month it'll be my first opponent in a wrestling ring. My friend that I met when I was deployed to Iraq, and we both said, well, so my mom she sent me wrestling magazines while I was deployed, and so not that one. I bought that when I was in Germany, but still that general idea. But
Yeah.
she sent magazines. My friend G, well, at the time he wasn't my friend. He was just some guy. He was like, "Hey, where'd you find that?" And I was like, "I didn't. My mom sent it to me." And so we bonded over wrestling. And before we came back to Hawaii, we made the deal that whoever gets back first is going to find a wrestling school because hey, we made it. We're back, and so we're gonna pursue this thing that we always wanted. And it was great. I was the one who came back. I found Hawaii Championship Wrestling, and yeah, we had some real good times. So next episode of From the Ground Up, we will be working in the year 2001 to to do this all over again and just have a good time.
Hell yeah.
By the way, I should be sending you a package very soon.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it, man. Always happy to get a new hat.
Yeah, a T-shirt as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the hat and the tee. You gotta have a matching set, man.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you all for watching, and see you Monday.